I'm Rashida.
And I am Marcus.
The Gecko has been trying to help people lower their car insurance, but who's trying to help us lower our medical bill costs? Healthcare costs are rising in Canada, which was once known to be free. So, how can we help ourselves in our pockets, you ask? Allow me to enlighten you in one such way. Western medicine has been indoctrinated in most of us since our childhoods, with a great many little boys and girls dreaming of becoming nurses or doctors. This was my dream as well until I discovered my mortal enemy, math. Starting my journey in healthcare in my 20s and as a new mom, I was open and eager to learn everything there was to learn. Working in elder care for most of my career has taught me a lot about the important things. I learned to never go to bed angry and to cherish every minute with the loved one because the next is not promised. More importantly, I learned the pains their bodies experienced as they grew older. I also learned about the medications that were needed to maintain those pains and illnesses. I surrounded myself with doctors and nurses eager to teach a young mind. I also relied on articles and publications dealing with elder care and marijuana. As it had become more popular in the last 30 years, more and more research is being conducted, and I researched out the research. My mother called me from the back of an ambulance in 2015 saying she fell and couldn't remember anything. The MT took the phone from her and told us that they were en route to the hospital so that we could meet them there. As Mark and I raced to the hospital, I was beside myself with wonder and stress. Who could have attacked my mother was all I could say over and over. Arriving at the hospital and talking with the doctors, running tests, checking blood pressure, standing, sitting, laying down, walking, and stooping, they discovered her diet and the fact that she was a personal trainer and raw vegan needed to be tested more. More tests and more brain scans to learn that she had experienced a seizure. Most of us hear seizure and think of a person falling all over the place, as this is a grand mal seizure. Even though I had years of healthcare experience, I had never experienced a temporal lobe seizure, or their other name, absence seizures, which affect children more than adults. These particular seizures cause the sufferer to zone out for a lack of better terms. They can become very confused and repeat the same word or phrases out of the clear blue. Upon coming out of the seizure, they usually have no knowledge of what has happened, and in my mother's case, she began to get aggressive and violent as she came around. There are no cures for seizure activity, just treatment. As I had history working in healthcare as well as an avid marijuana user, I had a little more knowledge than the next person. I knew the benefits awarded to users who suffered in pain because I had been using these treatments for years while talking with patients. The neurologist started her on 800 milligrams of levokeppra, or Keppra as this bed is known, twice a day, and her driving license was revoked for safety measures. This left her depressed and dependent on others, which is not in my mother's character. This also did not stop her seizure activity as she had to remain seizure free for 90 days to receive her driving license back. She could not make it past 30 days. The neurologist then added 600 milligrams of Tegretol and she lost the ability to use her legs, which is one of the many side effects, while increasing the Keppra to now 1,500 milligrams twice a day. In a 2014 article published on their website, the American Epilepsy Society stated the recent anecdotal reports of positive effects of the marijuana derivative cannabinoid for some individuals with treatment-resistant epilepsy give reason for hope. However, we must remember that these are the only anecdotal reports and robust scientific evidence for the use of marijuana is lacking. The lack of information does not mean that marijuana is ineffective for epilepsy. It merely means that we do not know if marijuana is a safe and effective treatment for epilepsy, which is why it should be studied along with the well-founded research methods that all other effective treatments for seizure and epilepsy have gone through. Such safety concerns, coupled with the lack of evidence of efficacy, are controlled studies result in risk-benefit ratio that does not support use of marijuana for treatment or seizures at this time. Healthcare professionals, patients, and caregivers are reminded the use of marijuana for epilepsy may not be advisable due to the lack of information on safety and efficacy. I'm a 70s kid, and my parents were coming off the end of being hippies and moving towards the Black Power, Black Love movement. They consumed enormous amounts of marijuana during those times. However, convincing my mother to try now was like asking her to have a brand new baby. I spoke with a friend who put together 200 capsules of CBD oil containing about 10 milligrams each, and we gave these to my mother. It has been 7 years, and she has not had a seizure since. In a press release written in 2018 and listed on their website, AES states, if the pharmaceutical grade CBD is FDA approved, it may be a helpful medication to add to the treatment options for certain children and adults with very challenging types of epilepsy, said Shlomo Senior, MD, PhD, president of the Epilepsy Society and American Comprehensive Epilepsy Management Center, Montfort Medical Center, Bronx, New York. It is important that people with epilepsy understand the difference between CBD medication and medical marijuana, which needs further research to determine its safety and effectiveness. We did not change my mother's medication regime. We simply added to it. We added CBD, just as that was suggested. Later that year, the FDA made it known that they had in fact approved a marijuana-derived medication for seizures, epilepsy, which, as this is great news, I had already done the research needed and applied for a medical marijuana card under Maryland qualifications to be a caregiver and my mother as a patient back in 2016. This, for me, was the proof that the government cared more about the financial part of this and all medications. Hemp, or as is more commonly used name cannabis, dates back to about 8,000 BC in Asia. It was used to make clothes, shoes, paper, ropes, and so much more. It was also grown for food as well as medication. There are reports which mention hemp being used in India before spreading across the world. As Americans, we never really consider Christopher Columbus unless it's the holiday they made for him. But the ropes and sails he used on the 3 vessels he brought here were made from hemp. It has also been said that the original pages of the Bible were written on hemp. As a medicine, it was used for each and every ailment in various methods of use. Some smoked, some made salves, and many made teas. Hemp was also one of the many crops enslaved people were responsible for on the plantations that owned them. Harry Anslinger rose to prominence in the early 1900s, working as the investigator for the railroads, progressing into becoming a government official and serving as the first commissioner of the U.S. Treasury Department Federal Bureau of Narcotics, lasting throughout the presidents of Hoover, Roosevelt, Truman, Eisenhower, and Kennedy. Considering some states were still participating in the enslavement of others, the races were a hotbed topic for much of the racism was rampant during these times. Quoted as saying there are 100,000 marijuana smokers in the U.S., and most are Negroes, Hispanics, Filipinos, and entertainers. Their satanic music, jazz, and swing result from marijuana uses. This marijuana usage causes white women to seek sexual relations with Negroes, entertainers, and many others. Harry Anslinger. As one of the top officials presiding during this time, his opinion was greatly valued and contributed to the mentality of others around him. There were even movies made during this time that depicted this message to others, 2 of them being Birth of a Nation 1915 and Reefer Madness 1936. Over the course of the next few hundred years, marijuana has remained on the list of controlled substances. Another such quote by Anslinger says, "Reefer makes darkies think they are as good as white men," thus furthering the mind frame that marijuana was harmful because of what it made people of color users do to their white counterparts. Let's quickly fast forward to the legalization of marijuana in 33 states across the U.S. The legalization is for 2 very important reasons. Number 1, it has for centuries been known to truly be a medication that is helpful. The second reason is the financial gain each state gains in the process of legalizing marijuana. In conclusion, marijuana has been used to treat various conditions and ailments throughout time. Coupled with the realization of how many medications are being marketed as safe, marijuana was labeled the opposite. The point I want you to take away from here today is that this too is a medication. It has been recognized for centuries all around the world as able to treat a variety of pains and ailments. I appreciate you taking the time to listen and open your minds to the possibility of saving ourselves some money. by treating our ailments that do not require pills. Taking the time to learn about our bodies and what works for them, in addition to what modern science says, is wonderful. Before there was modern science, though, there was simply medicine without bias or prejudice, and it worked. Thank you.